In the 1960s, a wave of independence movements swept across Francophone Africa, promising full sovereignty and a total break from colonial rule. Citizens celebrated the right to finally govern themselves. Today, the extraction of oil, minerals, and resources continues at an industrial scale, enriching multinational corporations while local populations remain trapped in poverty. When a nation's natural wealth consistently bypasses its own citizens, the explanation rarely lies in economics alone. It points to a severe disconnect between the people and the leaders who govern them. To understand who actually controls this wealth, you have to look outside the continent. For decades after independence, the true locus of power for multiple African nations resided right here, inside the Élysée Palace. This is the architecture of Françafrique. Here, the ballot box is political theater, masking a system where leadership is engineered from abroad. Presidents are rarely chosen by popular mandate. They are groomed and deployed like satellites to serve French interests. The first step in building this network is identifying the right candidates. French intelligence and diplomatic channels actively recruit promising figures, educating them in French institutions and embedding them within Parisian political circles. Gabon's Omar Bongo became the prototype for this system. Rising to power in 1967 with the quiet backing of Paris, he secured a highly loyal relationship with the French elite that sustained his dynastic rule for decades. France also cultivated disciplined military veterans. In Togo, Gnassingbé Eyadema, a former sergeant in the French colonial army, seized power and installed a single-party state. Paris valued his strict regional alignment over any democratic process. These relationships operated on a strict, unwritten pact. The African leaders granted generous concessions and monopolies to French corporations, like Elf Aquitaine and Total Energies. In exchange, they received unwavering political protection and immense personal wealth. This reciprocal arrangement locks a nation's resources into foreign contracts. By relying entirely on external backing for their survival, the leaders permanently sever any requirement to answer to their own citizens. Economic agreements require enforcement. When political loyalty wavers or a regime faces internal threats, France activates the second pillar of its architecture, a network of permanent military bases stationed across the continent. Chad served as a crucial buffer against Libyan expansion during the Cold War. To maintain this geopolitical line, France provided extensive arms and tactical support to Hissène Habré, deliberately ignoring the tens of thousands of political assassinations executed under his regime. When Habré was overthrown in 1990 by Idriss Déby, Paris smoothly recalibrated. They transferred their full diplomatic and military backing to Déby, ensuring the strategic status quo remained intact for the next 3 decades. The continuous presence of French soldiers, particularly the parachute brigades, functions as the ultimate insurance policy for these friendly regimes. This military capacity extends to direct intervention. Following the disputed 2010 election in Côte d'Ivoire, Laurent Gbagbo refused to step down, prompting a deep political crisis and a swift response from Paris. Under the banner of Operation Licorne, France repurposed an existing military mission. Presented as a humanitarian effort to prevent bloodshed, French troops launched a direct assault on Gbagbo's residence to force a transition of power. They facilitated the immediate installation of Alassane Ouattara, a French-educated economist and former IMF director, whose policies perfectly aligned with Western economic interests. This military enforcement clarifies the conditional nature of post-colonial sovereignty. Democratic transitions are tolerated, provided they result in absolute continuity for Paris. Foreign military and economic backing alone cannot fully explain how leaders hold power for 40 years. To survive for decades, these regimes cultivate an aura of occult rule. In Cameroon, Paul Biya governs largely in absentia, surrounding himself with extreme secrecy and rumors of traditional priests and spiritual warfare. His regime projects an image of divine, unchallengeable authority. For citizens living under this system, occult power becomes a necessary vocabulary. It describes the frustration of being governed by a state that makes decisions through invisible networks, remaining omnipresent, yet completely unaccountable. This carefully constructed domestic mystique is then validated on the global stage. Continuous diplomatic visits and public endorsements from French presidents provide international legitimacy to leaders who govern from the shadows. By blending spiritual dread with statecraft, the regime insulates itself. Challenging the leader becomes an existential risk, ensuring the structure remains untouched for generations. But a system built on engineered dependency cannot withstand a population that outgrows it. Across the continent, a new generation is actively fracturing this decades-old architecture. In 2023, the military abruptly ousted the Bongo dynasty in Gabon. Even one of the most deeply entrenched French-backed autocracies in Central Africa proved vulnerable to the mounting demands of its own military and citizens. This reflects a broader movement known as sovereignomics. It is a pan-African demand to dismantle the old network, strip away foreign influence, and reclaim total operational control over national institutions and economies. It leaves an unresolved challenge. Can a nation successfully forge its own future when its political trajectory has been manipulated from abroad for half a century? Scholar Manfred Ayuk notes that the prerequisites for genuine self-determination are absolute. True sovereignty begins when a nation chooses its own leaders, controls its own wealth, and determines its own destiny. Until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero.